Game 3 between the Philadelphia Flyers and Carolina Hurricanes is tonight, and with Noah Cates continuing to be out and Rick Tocchet making a few more announcements ahead of tonight's game, it's overall fairly important that we go over some things ahead of this game, including some stuff that you should already know about and some housekeeping items. So today, we're going to talk about, number one, the notable absences for this Flyers game, including some that weren't actually all that expected prior to earlier today. We're going to talk about the guys that you should expect to be in the game and what they should bring to the table, and then we're going to talk about some general housekeeping items, some stuff that's already been fairly rock solid, but we should still mention regardless. That being said, as usual, if you have been enjoying these videos, please make sure that you subscribe. It's 100% free and it helps you stay up to date with me and the Flyers. We're also trying to push for 1,000 subscribers at the moment, so if you could go down and leave a subscribe, and overall it would help the channel out a ton. That being said, we're going to jump straight into it. Ladies and gentlemen, the Philadelphia Flyers play the Carolina Hurricanes tonight in Philadelphia for Game 3, and this game is big. The Flyers are in a position that they have yet to be in this playoffs, and most of the players on this team have yet to be in ever. The Flyers are down 2-0 in the series against an incredible Hurricanes team. That being said, they're not dead yet. There's a reason that you play all 4 games that are needed to win. There's a reason you can play up to 7. So ahead of this game, there are a couple of things that we should discuss. The first one that I want to bring up is one of the more obvious ones, but still something that's worth talking about. Noah Cates is not going to be playing in this game. His availability was updated from being confirmed out for the remainder of the series to being simply day-to-day at the moment, but it's still, we should proceed with the expectation that we will be without one of the best defensive players on this Flyers roster for the remainder of the series. As a result of this, the Flyers defense is going to be a lot more lackluster, and you should generally think to see that fourth line with Couturier, Glendening, and Hathaway on it a little bit more, just because they're overall the most sound line defensively when it comes to the Flyers forward group, and I think that it's going to give them just a bit more ice time. I don't think it's going to throw Couturier, Glendening, and Hathaway into the 30 minutes a night scenarios that are kind of nightmare scenarios, but you should expect to see all of those guys in the 20-minute area, 24 maybe 27 for Couturier, depending on how the things fall. That being said, we do also have a couple of things that we should talk about that aren't quite as obvious. Number one being that prior to earlier today, it was expected that Owen Tippett would play in Game 3. However, courtesy of some people like Jackie Spiegel and Charlie O'Connor, Owen Tippett is out for Game 3, and this is coming direct from Tocchett himself. He said that Dvorak will be in, but it depends on the warm-ups as to whether or not he will play and how much he will play if he does. That being said, Tippett being out is a huge hit to the Flyers overall. Tippett is an amazing player offensively. He's absolutely super, super important to this Flyers lineup overall, and him being out is a huge hit once again, as him being expected to be in for Game 3 was a large portion of why some people thought that the Flyers may be able to steal Game 3 in Philadelphia. That being said, we're not dead in the water. Christian Dvorak likely will be playing. He's, like I've just said, he's set to play in warm-ups and decide where he's going to go from then. But with all of this being said, the overall lines that you should try to look out for look like this. At the top line, looking fairly similar to what it's been as of late. Tyson Foerster, Christian Dvorak, Travis Konecny, Trevor Zegras moving back over to center between Martone and Bump, and then an interesting third line here that I'm going to talk a little bit more about in a second, with Carl Grundstrom, Denver Barkey, and Matvei Michkov. Now, Denver Barkey at center is something that I've seen a lot of people in the comments have very, very pointed opinions on, and I don't blame you. Barkey is a guy that I have admitted myself is certainly incredibly small, all right? He's not really ever going to be anyone's first choice when it comes to a top-line center. That being said, Tocchett and Jonesy and Brière have all come out and said that they did like seeing him in center and have liked what's been going on with him. So, unfortunately, regardless of what your opinion is going to be, he's going to get time at center, and if things start to go south, Tocchett can always make mid-game decisions to try and change things up. That being said, the fourth line is the only one that's going to stay 110% the exact same. Luke Glendening, Sean Couturier, Garden Hathaway. An amazing 3-forward combo that's been the Flyers' most solid line throughout the entirety of this playoffs, even extending back to the Penguin series. These guys have been solid all year round. Like I was saying a minute ago, you should expect these guys to play a little bit more tonight than they have in previous games, just because Noah Cates is out, and we are going to need a little bit more defensive help from our forwards. We're going to get into this Grundstrom, Barkey, Michkov line for a moment, though, as some people have said that they part of the reason that Grundstrom, Barkey, and Michkov are going to be on the same line has to do with the fact that Sean Couturier has been amazing on this fourth line, and this fourth line has been incredibly solid overall, and that people don't think that Tocchett wants to break it up at all. Now, I understand wanting Couturier to move up. After all, Couturier has been the best player in the playoffs overall in the faceoff circle, and this is including every player in the playoffs up to this point that has had 50 attempts at a faceoff. All right, Couturier has been, by a considerable margin, the best ace in the circle. All right, if you go back, I think even in the first round, he was still consistently up there for the top. But I think that Tocchett doesn't want to leverage this heightened ability in the faceoff circle on a different line because it is such a shot to that bottom line's defense if you take Couturier out of it. That being said, the defense is going to be a problem. There's going to be some issues not having Cates in the lineup anymore, and I would not expect tonight to be a shutout, regardless of how strong Dan Vladar has been, because he's been amazing, and we'll talk about him in a second. However, I think the Flyers need to focus a little bit more on offense, and Tocchett seems to share this same sentiment, as Tocchett said that the Flyers have continued to overpass. And if you watch the games, you can kind of see this. You have instances where people are looking for too many passes, which, if you've ever played hockey before, if you've watched hockey for a long time, you wouldn't generally think of as something that's too much of an issue. After all, a lot of hockey comes from puck movement and comes from being able to move around the zone effectively and get everyone in position and try to set up plays that way. However, especially if you look at some guys like Ristolainen and the way that the power play has been, and part of why the power play has been so unbelievably bad for so long, the Flyers have an issue of moving the puck too much or sitting and waiting around for people to move the puck more, and then turning the puck over and it going the other way and it turning into a shorthanded opportunity, or turning into a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2, or God forbid a breakaway, a 2-on-0. Things like these are just overall not great. And we saw this shoot first mentality that Tocchett once succeed when Porter Martone came over. As Porter Martone came into the Flyers lineup, was doing nothing but shooting, had 14 shots in his first 2 NHL games, and he was playing amazing. Owen Tippett, another guy that loves to shoot but knows when to pass, but you simply shoot first. You put more shots on net, you're probably gonna get one in as long as you're actually hitting the net with it. And that's been part of the Flyers' biggest problem in these entire playoffs, especially in Game 1, to a lesser extent Game 2 against Carolina. So I do think that Tocchett is right here, that they need to embrace shooting first more, though I don't think that the way that they've been playing with the whole chip and chase and dumping it down low and then not winning the puck out and essentially turning every dump into an opportunity to change and turning the puck over is going to help that very much. Though if they can get set up in the offensive zone, telling the guys, hey, feel free to pull the trigger whenever you want, isn't going to hurt them nearly as much as some people may think. One last thing that I want to bring up before I end this video and let everyone get back to their day. Dan Vladar continues to be the best player in these playoffs for the Flyers, arguably. Despite being 4-4 in the playoffs so far, he's got a crazy save percentage and overall goals against. He's been arguably the best goaltender in the East, depending on, well, paging Jakub Dobeš after Game 1, but Dan Vladar's been absolutely amazing. The Flyers offense, like I was saying just a second ago, just needs to step it up, needs to put more shots on net, needs to do whatever they can to help Vladar, because it was shown, especially in last game, that Vladar will hold them in these games as long as possible. But even regardless of what kind of lead it is, if you're not getting shots, if you're not trying to extend the lead constantly, if you're not getting time in the offensive zone, holding a lead is borderline impossible. And you saw that in the second period when the Flyers started to fall apart a little bit. You saw it in the third period when they broke down in the defensive zone, and you saw it in overtime when the Hurricanes won Game 2. That being said, that's all I've got for today. Make sure that when you're watching the game, you pay attention to the defense overall, you pay attention to how Vladar's doing, and pay attention for any mid-game line changes from Tocchett, as if he doesn't like what he's seeing, he's shown, especially in Game 1 of this series, that he's not opposed to switching things up midway through. That being said, if there's anything that you agreed with me on that you think I should have covered more, if there's anything that I didn't touch on that you think I should have talked about today, please make sure that you let me know in the comments. I'm open to sticking around, hearing out people's opinions, and overall just engaging with y'all. And one final time, if you guys have been enjoying the content, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure that you subscribe and help us hit that goal of hitting 1,000 subscribers. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching today, and I will see you around. Go Flyers.